Hi there, I'm just a Shoebill, and today I want to talk about Deadlock's balance, because I feel like people tend to fall into one of two camps when talking about its balancing. Those being that some characters or items are overtuned or too strong, but for the most part the game is in a pretty good position, or that specifically gun characters are a bane to this game, a scourge upon the world. Maybe I'm being dramatic. But a lot of people do, for some reason, find gun characters to be a major issue. And admittedly, I used to fall into the latter of the two. But as I've gotten better at the game and understand how to just play better, I also feel like most people who fall into that second camp are those who have very little, if any, MOBA experience. Mostly coming from shooters, specifically hero shooters like Overwatch or Marvel Rivals. But why is that? Why is there this massive disparity between the two? Well, quite frankly, it's because Deadlock isn't a hero shooter. It isn't an FPS. At its core, it is a MOBA. And yes, I understand it incorporates a lot of aspects that are indicative of typical FPS. The third-person camera, the verticality of the map, and sometimes some teamfights do just feel like a hero shooter. But it is a MOBA. And its design philosophy mirrors that. At the end of the day, some characters are going to be better than others at certain points in the game. Some in the early, during the lane phase, some in the mid, and some in the late. And most gun characters are at their best in the late game, and they tend to be some of the best late game characters. Take Infernus for example. Once he's gotten 3 or 4 6k items along with the rest of his build, he's very strong. Items like Leech, Ricochet, Crippling Headshot, and even like Toxic Bullets make him very hard to 1v1 and even worse to ignore in teamfights. And yet, he requires 30-40k souls on average for that sort of build, because at the end of the day he's going to probably have bought resistances or items like Knockdown, Disarming Hex, Silence Wave, something like that. And speaking of those items, you have your own ways of dealing with him if he does get to that point. Items like Disarming Hex, Plated Armor, even something like Metal Skin or Return Fire, but they're all ways to help minimize his impact and potentially kill him. Hell, even by slowing Hex so he can't run away. Doing this alongside things like stealing enemy camp in the early game to make it harder for him to farm jungle, or pushing things like walkers and even base guardians in the mid means that either you get an objective, or if they send someone back to defend, then they're at a disadvantage during teamfights if he decides to keep farming. You're putting the Infernus into a position where he has to choose from farm or fights. On the latter end of that, characters like Lash or Bebop are really good in the mid game, 15, 20, 25 minutes in, where they get a lot of value from their abilities and their ult. Especially since people won't have enough resists for their damage, Lash's Death Slam and Pocket's Barrage make it really good for them to stay in 1v1s and fight them out, along with their general mobility and survivability. It also makes it threatening for the enemy to stay in a 1v1 without the possibility of getting burst very quickly. Items such as Enchanter's Emblem and Cold Front also help amplify this. Now, both of these characters are also still good into the late game. Pocket's Barrage is very good, allowing them to get healing reduction off in a large area, Satchel can reduce fire rate, and same with items like Spirit Burn late game for both of these characters. Alongside Lash's ultimate just being one of the best in the game, it's insane for base fights or rejuve, confirms, and steals. But they also just start to get outclassed, outscaled by certain characters as you hit later and later. Then you have early game characters like Sinclair and, to a bit of a lesser extent, Bebop, where they're very good in the early, being able to be a lane bully, or they excel at getting picks after either their Guardian or the enemy Guardian is taken out. Sinclair's Magician and Rabbit allow him to deal a lot of damage while not taking much himself, and Vexing Bolt allows him to deal a lot of damage from a very safe distance, allowing him to confirm kills that a lot of the time you may not expect him to have access to. Bebop's Hook and Uppercut are kind of similar. They allow him to just steal you from your own Guardian and force you onto his own, and hell, if you let Bebop get stacks, then, well, he can be good at any point in the game, and maybe even traumatize people while he's at it. I'm looking at you, not self-aware. Please stop it. Okay, but what does that have to do with balance? A lot, actually, because items are a key aspect of this game, and so are the characters themselves, obviously. If a character is an issue, then there are ways of dealing with them. This can force them to play differently, or to buy items they wouldn't normally get. For example, if 7 is a major issue in fights, because of, say, his ultimate. And buying items like Knockdown for when he doesn't have Unstoppable can really help you if your kit doesn't have built-in CC. This in turn can make him play slower, ult less randomly and proactively, and constantly makes him have to be aware of if Knockdown is on cooldown or not. Or, you know, he just rushes Unstoppable. Another thing to keep in mind with Deadlock and its balance is it's in an early development stage. They don't even call it an alpha in its current stage. The game is always changing. We had the shop rework about 2 months ago, and at the time of recording this, they recently revamped Blue Lane. Obviously, this doesn't excuse any unbalanced state that the game may have previously been in, or will be in the future. But it also doesn't mean that you should expect it to be perfect and to your liking all of the time. Metro talked about how he knows someone on the balance feedback group.
So, the way they're doing balance right now, if you guys don't know, there's a separate closed beta alpha test. We're in an alpha test, but there's a closed separate alpha test, if you didn't know, where certain members of the community, certain streamers, pro players, but also casuals and friends of Valve, friends of the developers, give feedback on balance and changes, right?
And the Deathly leak goes to show that there are multiple builds of the game constantly going on, where they're testing new heroes, items, and potentially even map layouts. Hell, we went from 4 to 3 at the end of the day. Sadly, this technically does have the potential for an out-of-touch patch of sorts, where they balance around what should have been balanced around previously, or hell, even technically what they're testing privately instead of what's on live servers. But I really don't like that mentality, and I really doubt that it'll ever happen in reality. Okay, but what about heroes that may feel relatively weak currently? Well, a lot of that comes down to team play. As I mentioned, the Deadlock team has a feedback group, of which most of the people in it should be expected to be a decently high skill, so they understand the core mechanics of the game, the items that they buy, and the heroes that they play. As a result, team play will be more common, and some heroes will feel incredibly strong because of that. Case in point being Viscous. If you look at something like DFN, Deadlock Fight Night, Viscous reigns supreme due to his general utility and versatility. He is incredibly good in structured team play, but that doesn't happen in random games you play. And as a result, he can feel weak compared to other champions. And MOBAs do this all of the time. Champions like Azir are famous for being pretty weak in solo queue in League, but are famously very good in the game's esports scene. And the thing is that's a result of, if we allow them to be good in solo queue, they dominate pro play to an unfair degree, to a point where it may even be unfun to watch and unfun to play in that scene. Lastly, I want to talk about hero matchups and the general matchmaking currently. It may seem a little bit weird to bunch these together, but it'll make sense in a minute. Matchmaking works by trying to get all players in a match to be roughly the same skill level. They also tend to put people of similar skill in the same lanes as each other. So even if you are, say, Alchemist and end up with an Archon player on the enemy team, you're most likely not going to be laning against each other. Unless, you know, someone swaps lanes, but the game also gives you harder matchups if you are playing in a group, especially if you're a full 6-stack. Way more often than not, you will be playing against other groups, most of which are probably other 6-stacks. This can mean that some characters may seem insane and overpowered depending on your own skill and your rank compared to the person who you are against and the character that they play. For instance, I one-trick pocket, and depending on who I lane against, I can feel very, very strong or very, very weak, and that changes how I will play the lane. Sometimes that will result in me being fed, and other times it will result in the enemy being fed. And as a result, a fed character will feel very, very strong, especially if they know what they're doing. And the thing is, fed characters are going to feel stronger than you, and that is because they are. They are further ahead in their build, and as a result, can fight more consistently, control more space, and be more proactive around the map. As a result, can help push their lead, both as a player and as a team. And again, there are still ways to combat this, even if you don't want to admit it. Things such as playing safer, playing with your team, side laning if you have to, taking fights that you have numbers advantages in, or you have the space for, pushing enemy objectives as a team, and lastly, once again, buying items specifically to counter the enemy. Deadlock's balance is fine, and sure, in my opinion, there are some characters that do need slight nerfs or slight buffs. Mirage is a very good example of that, because I personally think he's too oppressive in the early and too strong in the late. Mid game he's fine, but one or the other needs to be nerfed slightly. Calico is another one I personally think is a bit strong. I understand they just nerfed box running, but with its tweaks to the flex slots and people fighting a lot more, Calico is still seeing a lot of success because she is very good in team fights. And again, there are the odd items that also require reworks, nerfs, or complete overhauls. Items like Ricochet and Toxic Bullets, in my opinion, are two standout examples. I also believe that haze should be removed from the game, and oh my god, gun characters are the issue. Kidding, genuinely the balance is good. At the end of the day, it is a MOBA, and some characters are going to feel oppressive in the late game because they are meant to be, because they are designed to be weak early, or weak in the mid, and then strong in the late. Some will feel like server admins in the mid game, and others will feel like absolute tyrants in the lanes. But that is because they will fall off at some other point in the game. And the sooner people come to grips with that, the sooner I think people will worry less about the game's balance. It is not a hero shooter. Characters are going to get stronger as the game progresses. And whether you like it or not, sometimes characters are going to get fed. And there sometimes isn't much you can do about it. That's not bad game design, that is simply them playing very well, or your team, for one reason or another, not playing their best. And hell, more often than not, there is something you can do about it. Sometimes you need to counter-buy, and sometimes you need to play objectives. And occasionally, you just need to chill out. And remember, it is a game that hasn't come out yet. Play how you want to play. If that means playing meta, then play meta. If it means playing a silly off-meta build on a character you want to learn or character you love playing, then do so. Don't get mad at your teammates for doing the opposite, and don't get mad at the enemy for doing it either. Get mad at them for calling you slurs, and then rage bait them to getting more mad and calling you more slurs, because that is one fun way to ruin their mental. At the end of the day, everyone is trying to have fun. Sometimes the enemy's fun means you won't have fun, and vice versa. Just maximize your fun how you seem fit. And hell, if you personally do feel like the balance of the game is poor, then I get it. It's understandable. And feel free to tell me why in the comments. And if you see someone you disagree with, don't fight them. Don't do that, genuinely. It's people's opinions after all. And again, this game isn't even out yet. Things are always subject to change. We have plenty of content to look forward to in the future. There are going to be plenty more characters that people are going to get mad about, and plenty more items that people are also going to get mad about. But we also are going to have more characters like Ivy and Viscus, who are absolute babies who we must protect at all costs. Look forward to the game's release. Enjoy it, and again, find a way to have fun. Take a break, even if it's for an extended period of time. Wait for the next major update. Wait for characters like Vampire Bat, for Drifter, for Frank to come out. But don't give up. This game has a lot of promise. It is going to be good, trust me. And hell, maybe it'll be the game that kills League, if League doesn't kill itself in the process. And until next time, I have been just a Shoebill, and you have just watched me talk about Deadlock's balance, without really talking about it.